find a quadratic equation with the given solutions, write your answer in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So we're going backwards here, you guys. We're going exactly backwards. Given the solutions, can you come up with a quadratic equation that has those numbers as solutions? Well, okay, let's do a real quick. Let's do a problem you're more used to. If I asked you to factor x squared plus 7x plus 12 equal, if I asked you to solve x squared plus 7x plus 12 equals 0, what would you do? You would factor it, if possible, right? You could use the quadratic formula, right? But when it's possible to factor it, that's easier, when it's possible to factor. So what does this guy factor to be? X plus, it's got to be plus both times. X plus 3, x plus 4. So you set both factors equal to 0, what do you get? You know what, to make it more like the problem we're doing, what would happen, what would it be if I made it a minus here? Then it would be x minus 3 and x minus 4, right? Okay, if you set both factors equal to 0, what would you get? And solve. You'd get, yeah, okay. So what we're doing in this example over here is we're going backwards. It's like we're starting by you're given 3 and 4 as solutions, and then you come up with the related factors to those solutions, multiply those factors together, and then multiply out and get kind of back where we started. So you're going from the bottom up, okay? And that's exactly what we're going to do in part A. We're going backwards. So if 7 and 4 are your solutions, what would the associated factors be? Yeah, it's x minus 7 and x minus 4. Just like the associated factors with 3 and 4 in this quick example were x minus 3 and x minus 4. And then you'd set it equal to what? You'd multiply those associated factors together, set it equal to 0. And then if you want to write it in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, you got to multiply it out. So this is good review as well. For the final, you need to remember how to multiply polynomials, right? Okay, so see how fast you can do it. Now, don't get me wrong, speed's not everything, but you don't want to be super slow either. So see how fast you can do it. FOIL method, first, outer, inner, last. What do you get when you multiply out the first terms? X squared. What do you get when you multiply out the outer?
Minus 11x.
The outer? Minus 4x. The inner? Minus 7x max altogether. What do you get when you add those together? You already said it. He's thinking ahead. Minus 11x. And then when you multiply the last terms together? Plus 28. Set it. Don't forget equals 0. There it is. You just found you just worked backwards. You found a quadratic equation with the given solutions. Now, it's not unique. I could multiply that quadratic by any constant, like 2 or 3 or 4 or a million. And so I could multiply both sides of that equation by a constant, and that resulting equation would have the same solutions. But that's the simplest one when you have a leading coefficient of 1 on the x squared. That's the simplest one that has those solutions. Okay, so suppose you're given solutions negative root 2 and positive root 2. What would the associated factors be? Okay, let's start with root 2 because that's a little more familiar. You take the variable, if it's x, take x and subtract it, right? X minus root 2 is the factor associated with root 2. Oh, but when it's a negative, what would you do? What would the factor associated with negative root 2 be? Yeah, so the reason is you would subtract off the negative root 2, right? So you really build the associated factor in the same way. You subtract it off from x, but when you subtract off a negative, you get plus. So this isn't the way we're going to write it. We're going to write it as x minus a negative rad 2 is x plus radical 2, and then x minus radical 2. Multiply those together, set it equal to 0. That's your equation, but you're asked to multiply it out. Okay, multiply the first together. What do you get? X squared. Multiply the outer. What do you get? Negative x root 2. Multiply the inner. So they knock each other out, right? I'm not going to write it down. And then the last? Root 2 times root 2 is 2, but then what's the operation? You're distributing this root 2 over a minus, so it's minus 2 equals 0. So x squared minus 2 equals 0 is your quadratic equation that has solutions negative root 2 and positive root 2. That should be obvious that that's right. Because if you solve that, you could just bring the 2 to the other side and take square roots of both sides, right? And you get plus or minus root 2 as your answers.